Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Deku Married May, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. And we're back after that exciting final battle, everybody. You've all seen with your own eyes. And without further ado, it's time to show you the top 3 students. Neja exclaimed. The audience cheered as the place where the arena once stood opened up, and from there rose 3 pillars. Hatsume, Midoriya, and Yaoyorozu stood on the pillars, landing at first, second, and third place. Hatsume stood dumbfounded, Midoriya waved his hand with a little smile, and Yaoyorozu folded her arms and looked at the ground, a saddened expression on her face. Yaoyorozu doesn't look too happy, Melissa remarked. She was so close to winning the festival, but Midoriya and Hatsume's teamwork proved to be too much, Uraraka explained, resting her chin on her palm. She even managed, for the briefest of moments, to use both her quirk and her wings at the same time, and it still wasn't enough. That's no reason to be a crybaby about it, though, Bakugo argued, scratching his head. Besides, she's still got 2 more tries to win this thing. But what she cared about was winning this year's festival, and she failed, Uraraka argued back, leaning closer with a stern expression. If you ask me, I'd say she has every right to be upset. Fine, fair point, but if she stays depressed for too damn long, I'm definitely complaining. Melissa quietly wondered why she was stuck in the middle of this argument. And now, Midnight spoke as she walked to the pillars to deliver the medals. A booming laugh echoed across the stadium, causing everyone to look up as a familiar, muscular shadow appeared. Melissa, Midoriya, and a few other people smiled wide as the figure leaped from its spot, and landed right next to Midnight. IAM. All Might. Everything went quiet for a second as the smoke dispersed, revealing All Might with his mouth open. He closed it and turned to a sheepish Midnight. Sorry, I talked over you. It's okay. All Might flashed a thumbs up. After all, I am All Might. The number 1 hero laughed some more as he stood up, then stopped just in time to begin the medal ceremony proper. He took out a medal, and walked up to the 3rd place pillar. Young Yaoyorozu. Yaoyorozu perked up. Why yes. You did the best you could do, young Yaoyorozu. I'm sure wherever they are, your parents are very proud of the progress you've made. All Might put a hand on Yaoyorozu's shoulder. Just as I'm proud to have you as one of my star students. Yaoyorozu's eyes widened. I'm one of your star students. All Might laughed. Of course. Why wouldn't you be? Smart, athletic, studious, and honest to a fault. The number 1 hero put the medal on Yaoyorozu's neck. You've earned your place in the hero course, young Yaoyorozu. You've proven that today. Yaoyorozu looked at the medal, then back at All Might's wide smile and his thumbs up. With a feeling of joy emanating from her, the girl took a deep breath and held back tears as she answered. Thank you, All Might. You're welcome. The hero walked to the next pillar. Now, young Midoriya. Midoriya straightened up. Yes. And he almost lost his composure when the muscular hero hugged him. The first day I saw you, I had a feeling you would give it your all in order to make up for being a late bloomer, and I'm happy to say, you've surpassed all of my expectations. All Might patted Midoriya's back. I'm glad to have you as part of the hero course, young Midoriya. Midoriya hesitantly hugged back. And I'm glad I didn't disappoint you, All Might. All Might tightened the hug and whispered, and I'm also glad you opened my eyes the first time we met. If you hadn't told me about that powerless thing, I may've kept a close-minded look at my successor. So, once again, thank you, young Midoriya. All Might separated from the boy and handed him the medal, which he accepted graciously. Then the man jumped into the 1st place pillar and landed in front of Hatsume, who snapped back to reality immediately. All Might, sir, you were certainly the biggest surprise of the festival. But one that was most definitely welcomed. All Might put a hand on Hatsume's shoulder. You truly embody the motto of UA. I do. All Might laughed and explained as he put the medal around her neck. You were blinded by the hero killer stain, and you got up. Young Ashido bothered you through the semester and the festival, and you got up. And more importantly, you stood in the arena with 2 other opponents, both star students, and you didn't just stand with them. You fought them, and came out victorious. All Might pounded his chest. That is to go beyond. That is to go. All Might eyed Yaoyorozu and Midoriya, who gave him a nod before he turned back to Hatsume. The gadgeteer smiled, gave a nod, and raised her arm as the entire stadium exclaimed with excitement. Plus ultraaaaa. We were this close, Midoriya. Monoma cried. We were literally only inches away from winning the sports festival, and you collapsed right then and there. Monoma, stop it, you know it's not Midoriya's fault that he collapsed. Kendo argued, jabbing the crying boy. His quirk basically upgraded itself out of nowhere. Sudden transformations like that never last long. I know, but it's so frustrating. Midoriya took a deep breath as Kendo and Monoma kept arguing. He was currently sitting on a table with Tokage and a couple other classmates, namely girls. So, that form you unlocked was quite something, Miroidia, but on more important matters, Tokage spoke, then leaned closer to the guy. Geez, you never told us you were hiding such sweet abs. Yanagi took over Shiozaki's role and slapped Tokage, though she frowned after doing so. It doesn't feel the same. No, it doesn't. And to answer your question, Tokage, I trained my body real hard during the 10 months before the entrance exam, Midoriya explained, twiddling his fingers. Since I had no idea I could do anything besides summon wings, I thought training my body was the most logical choice. Still, you don't just get abs like that from simple training, Tokage remarked. What did you do? Meditate. Break logs. Suplex a mountain. Midoriya smirked. That's a secret. Tokage pouted and folded her arms, causing Midoriya to chuckle as he stood up, then winced in pain. Whoa, hold it there, cowboy. Tokage said as she and the girls helped the guy sit back down. You're not in any condition to move. Where are you even going? Gonna go see your girlfriend. I was planning to go meet Hatsume, but not now, Midoriya shook his head. I was actually planning to go see Yaoyorozu. Kendo and Monoma seemingly heard this, since they were up in Midoriya's nose soon after. You wanna go see Yaoyorozu? Really? I know it sounds crazy, but once you ignore the fact she wanted me to become her mate, Yaoyorozu wasn't that bad, Midoriya scratched the back of his head. And I don't want her to think that just because I won't be her mate, doesn't mean I don't want to be friends. So you're gonna friendzone her after she came close to winning the festival, only to fail in the end, Monoma folded his arms. I didn't know you could be this cruel, Midoriya. Smack. Never mind him, Midoriya. Kendo frowned. However, you have to admit, maybe you're taking things a bit too fast, Midoriya. Give her some time to think about what happened and, when she's feeling better, you can tell her about it. Perhaps, but, Midoriya lowered his head. I can't help but feel worried about her. Melissa, is something wrong? The bespectacled inventor flinched and turned to her side to see Shimura standing next to her. She then glanced back at the sight she was absent-mindedly looking at before, Uraraka comforting a frowning Yaoyorozu. Oh, well, I'm just worried about Yaoyorozu, Melissa answered, resting her cheek on her palm. She got so far, and yet, she was soundly beaten. Then go comfort her yourself. Melissa turned back to Shimura, and after throwing a baffled look at him, she silently agreed with him and stood up. She walked over to the duo, and sat to Yaoyorozu's free side. So, Yaoyorozu, she began. Third place, huh. If you don't have anything to say that will make Yaomomo feel better, don't bother, Shield, Uraraka remarked. She's not feeling well right now. Yeah, I clearly noticed, and I wanted to help, Melissa stood up awkwardly. But, I can't really think of anything to do, so I guess I'll leave you alone. Wait, please. The blonde inventor stopped and turned back to see Yaoyorozu twiddling her fingers as she turned to look at her. How do you get through this? Melissa raised an eyebrow. I mean, how do you continue with your life, knowing that you failed to do what you set out to do? Yaoyorozu frowned. In my case, get Midoriya as a mate, and prove to my dad that I can keep my wings without them hindering my quirk, and, well, you know. Melissa shrugged. That's simple, I just stand up and keep moving. Uraraka lowered her eyelids. Care to be a bit more specific? Okay, well, think about this. For as serious as we took this event, it was just a school event. Nothing more, nothing less, Melissa argued. You lost in the end. Sure, you didn't get Midoriya as a mate. Fine. Neither means the end of the world for you. But, the point of the sports festival is to show the current pro heroes what we can do as the next generation. And believe me, your shower of feathers alone probably impressed several dozen pro heroes. Yaoyorozu blushed. Well, that's good, but. And about Midoriya not being your mate, both classes have literally over a dozen guys. Even if we were to take out Class 1B, which we might as well do considering what you did, you could still go for one of the guys in 1A, like Tokiyami. Yaoyorozu scratched her chin. Now that you mention it, I have been hanging out with him more often. Good. Then try taking the next step with him. And if that doesn't work out, you still got several guys to try out. Melissa took a deep breath. Finally, don't leave the situation with Midoriya as it is. Try to stay friends with him. I definitely have to agree with this bit, Uraraka remarked. As heroes, we need to try and get a good network between our fellow hero students, and if you leave the situation with Midoriya as it is, you might close off potential partners. If not Midoriya, then the rest of 1B. I see. Yaoyorozu frowned. Guess I messed up harder than I thought, huh? I'll be sure to fix it as soon as I can. The Black Swan girl flashed a smile. Thanks, Melissa. No problem. Glad I could help. Melissa adjusted her glasses. Now, if you excuse me, I'm curious as to where Hatsum is right now. She still couldn't believe it. She was looking at the medal that was proof that she was the winner of the entire sports festival, and yet, she still felt like the world was pulling a prank on her. Especially because she was currently sitting on a room with All Might's deflated form, and Principal Nezu. Alright, thanks for coming at quick notice, Hatsum, Nezu remarked. There's something we'd like to discuss with you. If it's about keeping All Might's true identity a secret, it's a bit late, Hatsum scratched her head. Midoriya and I have been keeping our mouths shut. No, that's not it. And if Melissa seems about to spill the beans, Midoriya and I will make sure to stop her. That would actually be vastly appreciated, thank you, Nezu put his paws together. But that's not it. Let me get to the point. Mina Ashido has been expelled from UA after her arrest due to delinquent behavior. About time. Seriously, I was starting to worry how long it'd be until, Hatsum winced. Wait, if she's out, that means there's a vacant spot in Class 1A, right? Nezu nodded. And I'm offering you that spot. Hatsum dropped the medal. Now this had to be a dream, it just had to be. Winning the sports festival was one thing, but being given the chance to join the hero course. That was unbelievable. Not unwelcomed, though, just unbelievable. Why me, though? Hatsum blurted. Surely you have over a dozen other students who are more worthy than me. Perhaps, but today, you were the one to show the potential to become a hero, All Might argued. And like I said before, you did so with a disadvantage. Hatsum moved her hand over her empty eye socket. Still, I can't accept. It's perfectly alright if you decline the offer, Hatsum, we just wanted to let you know about the vacant spot. Nezu got an idea. In fact, if you have any suggestion for who could take the spot, we'd gladly hear it. Just then, Hatsum remembered a certain insomniac-looking boy. Well, if you're willing to consider it. After a little argument with the principal and All Might, Hatsum walked out of the office, only to be met with Midoriya, Yaoyorozu, and Melissa outside. Oh hey, guys, she remarked, rubbing her arms. What are you doing here? We were told you were with the principal and All Might and we got a little worried, Midoriya explained. Did something happen? No, they just told me that since Ashido was arrested, there's a vacant spot in Class 1A, Hatsum scratched the back of her head. And, thanks to my performance, they gave me the choice to take that spot. Midoriya's eyes widened and he gained a big smile, before Hatsum added. I declined. He frowned immediately. Why? I'm just not cut out for the hero stuff, Izuku, Hatsum smiled. Besides, they gave me the option to suggest someone else could take that spot, so I did. We talked a bit, and they're going to consider my suggestion. Still, it's a bit disappointing you declined, Midoriya smiled back. I think you could have made a great hero, May. Hatsum blushed as she formed a wide, slightly awkward smile. Okay, Izuku. May, you two are on first-name basis now. Melissa giggled. Okay, spill, what happened while I was away? Hatsum and Midoriya put their fingers on their mouths. That's a secret. Melissa nodded with an amused smile. Well, if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm accompanying Yaoyorozu, she wants to give you something. The duo turned to the Black Swan girl, who took a deep breath before she reached for her stomach, and created a pair of Matryoshka dolls. Both resembling the images of Midoriya and Hatsume. Oh, cool, Matryoshka dolls. Midoriya chirped as he grabbed the doll based on Hatsume. I've seen pictures about these things online, but I've never seen a real one before. They're gifts, Yaoyorozu explained. Apology gifts, and a peace offering. A bit of both, really. Melissa nudged the Black Swan girl's side. The gifts, first and foremost. Okay, but why? Hatsume asked as she inspected the Midoriya-styled doll. Is this your way of congratulating us? Partially, it's also my way to ask someone to be my friend, and my way to apologize for this whole deal between us. Yaoyorozu blushed and twiddled her fingers. You know, the whole, make Midoriya my mate, thing. Midoriya lowered the doll. Well, Yaoyorozu, now that you bring it up, I just want to let you know, we could still be friends. Yaoyorozu nodded. I think so too. I'd like to be friends with you. Just friends. Just friends. This is the nicest friendzoning I've seen my life, Hatsume blurted. Winning the festival was worth it just for this moment. The quartet shared a short laugh before Yaoyorozu went back to the Class 1A break room. Shortly after, President Mike came with an announcement. Attention, attenders and ATTENDETTES. The first-year sports festival is about to conclude. If you don't want to end up being kicked out, please form a line and go back home. You heard the man, it's time to leave. Melissa extended a hand forward. Wanna head back home together? Midoriya and Hatsume held hands and exchanged looks and nods. Hatsume was the one to accept Melissa's offer. Answer, a trio of winners left the sports festival that day. ... Midoriya woke up and wasted no time getting ready for another day at UA. The second and third year sports festival was about to begin, and that was going to take up most of the first few hours, so he quickly got dressed on his school uniform and left. Once he reached the living room, however, he saw something interesting. Hatsume sleeping on the couch, snoring like a wild animal. Even with the not-so-pleasant smile, Midoriya couldn't help but smile. Inko wasn't around to wake her up, though, so he grabbed the control remote and turned on the TV. In other news, the most prestigious hero school in Japan, UA, is currently on lockdown while the authorities investigate the school for any sign of villainous insiders. Midoriya dropped the remote, which hit the ground loudly enough to wake up Hatsume. Good morning, Izuku. What happened? UA's on lockdown. What? Hatsume and Midoriya turned back to the TV, which was now showing Inko talking to a news reporter. After it was discovered that the apprentice of the infamous hero killer, Stain, was attending UA, the police department unanimously agreed that this was a case we needed to investigate as soon as we could, and that the apprentice name redacted needed to be arrested. And why did it take you so long to perform the arrest? Before we could begin a proper investigation, the principal of UA, Nezu, came to us with a couple documents related to certain villain organizations. When asked where he got them, he kept silent, and simply asked us to wait until the sports festival finished to begin the investigation. Once we made the arrest the same day, he confessed that he got the documents from the apprentice herself. So, you're saying that this name redacted was smart enough to convince the UA faculty to let her participate in a public event like the sports festival? Inko nodded sadly. What's more, the information on the documents had links to certain villain groups we've had trouble catching lately. So, getting that information was definitely a plus, even considering what had to be done to get it. Well, we're running out of time here, Detective Midoriya. Do you have any last words? I just want to let you know that we're going to search every ink and cranny of UA until we can say, for sure, that there's no risk of another insider within either the students or the staff. And that's it for today. Now, we'll go to the sports festival to try distract you from these shocking news. Midoriya snatched the control remote and turned off the TV, dropping the remote on the table as he rubbed his forehead in thought. Did you hear what they said, Hatsume? Yeah, UA's on lockdown, but the sports festival keeps going. Hatsume shook her head. I would put that event on lockdown too, or at least on hold. The sports festival still being allowed to happen is the least of our worries, Midoriya said, scratching his chin. Remember the big three. They're third years, so that means that, unless they were allowed to leave, They're going to be at the sports festival during the lockdown. And their help would have been very appreciated, I assume. Hatsum took a deep breath. Well, what do we do now? We can't go to school like this. RIING. RIING. Asterisk. Midoriya reached for his pocket and took out his phone. It had a simple message from his mother, which read, "Come to UA right now. Bring Hatsum and Melissa with you." It's Mom, Midoriya sighed. She said I should go to UA regardless, and to bring you and Melissa too. Now that you mention her, how's Melissa going to react to the news? Hatsum asked as she got up and left the couch. We should go see how she. As soon as she took a step, Hatsum wobbled to the desk, hitting her shin and causing her to fall back to the couch, shouting in pain. Hatsum, are you alright? Midoriya ran up to the pink-haired gadgeteer and wrapped her arm around his shoulder. What happened? I don't know, I just took a step and my body just felt weird all of a sudden, Hatsum answered as she stood up with Midoriya's help. Not only that, but I get this weird sensation on my head. And it's gone. What? It's gone, the weird feeling, it just vanished. Midoriya frowned. Now we definitely have to head to UA, we're gonna need Recovery Girl to see what's up with you. Midoriya helped Hatsum get dressed in her school uniform. Good thing his apartment apparently had a spare and they left the house before heading to Melissa's room next door. As soon as Midoriya knocked the door, Melissa opened it and dragged the duo inside before slamming it shut. And judging by her All Might-themed pajamas and shocked expression, she had just found out the news. Guys, UA's on lockdown. Yeah, we know, Hatsum sighed. We just saw the news report. I'm still stunned, Melissa rubbed her forehead. I mean, I had a feeling something like this would happen eventually, but I didn't think it'd happen today. We can discuss when it should have happened later, Midoriya stated. For now, we need to head there and figure out just what's going on. Yeah, Aunt Inko told me to head there and to take you two with me, did you guys? Melissa paused upon seeing the duo's current position. Midoriya, why are you carrying Hatsum like that? Shortly after she got up, she started feeling weird, even mentioned having some ghost headache that left as quickly as it arrived. Midoriya eyed Hatsum with worry. I'm gonna take her to Recovery Girl's office to see if she can find out if something's wrong with her. Alright, well, I'm gonna go get ready, Melissa said, playing with her hair as she shyly requested, if you could just go outside and wait for a few minutes, I'll join you. With no time to waste, the Musutafu trio entered the train to UA and sat down. As the train rode to the high school, Melissa folded her arms and tapped the floor repeatedly, while Midoriya focused on Hatsum, who was rubbing her head. How are you feeling, Hatsum? A little better, but not by much, the gadgeteer sighed. I don't know why, but I feel like I just got a lot lighter, for some reason. As if something was taken away from me. As if something was taken away from her. But the entire house was locked down before we went to sleep. Oh hey, isn't that the winner of the sports festival? Melissa and Midoriya flinched and turned around to see them being approached by what looked like an ordinary salaryman, except his hair was on fire. Literally. You were amazing back then. I'll be cheering you on next festival. Right, there was going to be 2 more sport festivals during the trio's remaining school life. However, more important than that, the man's statement seemed to have caught the attention of the other passengers. No way. Is she really here? Hey, she is. And she's with her boyfriend. And the daughter of David Shield is here too. The trio grimaced as they were surrounded by passengers. By the time the train had arrived at the station, the trio burst out with their hairs made a mess, or in Midoriya's case, made more of a mess. I hate being a celebrity, Hatsum growled matter-of-factly. Well, the good news is that if I've learned anything from my past dealings with celebrities, you'll be forgotten overnight as soon as the next big sensation comes up, Melissa said as she helped the trio stand up. Oh, you've arrived. Thank goodness. The trio turned to the source of the voice, and they saw Inko and Detective Scouchy approaching them. The latter was grabbing the former's hand as she rubbed her forehead with her free hand. Mom, what's going on? I mean, I know UA is on lockdown, but why did you need us to come here regardless? Midoriya asked, walking towards the woman and crouching down once he noticed her groans. And, do you feel well? Nothing that can't be explained away due to constant work, Inko answered. Things have been quite hectic at the police department since the arrest of Mina Ashido. We've been requested to put UA on lockdown and investigate the faculty and students thoroughly, Scouchy explained, getting the trio's attention. This is done in order to make sure we find a case similar to Ashido, if there is such a case, and stop it before it can repeat her actions. And if there isn't someone like that, then we can remove the lockdown, but put UA under heavy supervision. I see. I guess as soon Mina's case was made public, the chance of there being someone else like her caused insecurity and paranoia. Midoriya clenched his fist. Dang it, even when she's not around, she's ruining everything. You can say that again, Deku. Melissa and Hatsune turned around, and they saw Bakugo walking towards them, with Uraraka and Kirishima by his sides. We got the news about the lockdown and I have an anger management class later this evening, so this better be good. Be on your best behavior, Bakugo, Uraraka told the explosive blonde. You don't want the police to think you might be the next Mina, alright. What the hell are you implying, round face? Guys, calm down, please don't start fighting now, Kirishima requested. Okay, it seems that the students are arriving. Inko turned back to her son and grabbed his hand. The first thing we're gonna need all of you to do is head to Recovery Girl's office in order to do a health checkup. Which is exactly what I came here for. Midoriya stood up and walked to Hatsume's side. Let's go to her office, Hatsume. Right. Hatsume sat on a bed at the infirmary while Recovery Girl checked her clipboard for the results of the medical tests. Nearby them were Midoriya and Melissa, both looking concerned for their friend. Is Hatsume gonna be okay? The trio asked in unison, causing them to look at each other in disbelief. Physically, there's no indication that damage has happened, her organs are fine, her temperature's average, and in general, I'd say she's perfectly fine. Recovery Girl paused and frowned. If it wasn't for one troubling discovery I found. Hatsume's eyes widened. What is it? Recovery Girl grabbed one of her papers and revealed it. The paper showed an X-ray picture of Hatsume's head, right on her eyes. As you can see, your quirk factor is located right between your eyes, and it's connected to your eyeballs. Midoriya raised an eyebrow. Wait, I thought having an extra pinky toe joint determined if you'd have a quirk factor. That just determines whether the quirk factor will develop or not, Melissa explained, raising her index finger. The quirk factor itself will appear somewhere around the body, and from there it will assimilate itself into the body to create a quirk. And if the quirk factor itself gets damaged, so does the quirk. Recovery Girl turned back to Hatsume. In short, it appears you have lost your quirk. Lost my quirk. Hatsume tilted her head. You mean, having my eyes destroyed wasn't enough for me to lose it? Your eyes being destroyed simply removed your main method of activating it. However, you could theoretically gain the ability to use it again if your eyes were ever to heal back to normal, Recovery Girl explained with a solemn tone. However, if something happens to the quirk factor, then the quirk itself can be lost, if the damage is bad enough. Hatsume lowered her head and Midoriya put a hand on her back as Mineta asked, is there any way to fix the damage? Well, there's a way, is what I'd say if there was damage to heal. Recovery Girl scratched her chin. You see, after checking the results, it seems Hatsume's quirk factor is fine. It just seems to have lost her quirk. Well, how's that even possible? Midoriya folded his arms. You said it yourself, doing damage to the quirk factor is what causes the quirk to be lost, so how can it be fine and yet not have a quirk? Believe me, this anomaly baffles me as well, unless we consider there being a quirk that can take other quirks. Recovery Girl paused to think about it. But that would only make it harder for you to sleep at night. Does it exist? The girls raised their eyebrows at the source of the question. Midoriya, who folded his arms as he asked once more. Does such a thing exist? A quirk that can take away other quirks? With Recovery Girl unable if not unwilling to provide the answer, the Musutafu trio headed to the next best person to ask the question, All Might. They were sitting at the couch in his office, the man in his skeletal form as he took a sip of coffee, though how he could take it when he had no stomach anymore was a mystery, and bluntly asked. Are you truly prepared to have your views on the world potentially changed irrevocably? Those words from All Might were enough to send infernal chills down the teenagers' spines. In particular, Midoriya and Hatsume were left shaken, and honestly quite hesitant to go through with the question. If what the old hero was saying was true, and he had no reason to lie so it had to be true, then maybe this wasn't something they should know right now. I think I'm needed at the workshop, Hatsume said, standing up and scratching her head. Me blowing stuff up in there has become so common power loader might be growing worried with all the silence. And I should go join my classmates for the inspection, Midoriya said, standing up as well. If even one of us isn't present, the police are going to get very suspicious, and I don't want them to go through with that. Excusing themselves, Midoriya and Hatsume awkwardly left the office, leaving Melissa and All Might alone. And what about you, young Melissa? All Might asked, getting blonde inventor's attention. Class 1A's inspection is coming up, so you should get going too. I want to know, Melissa stated, adjusting her glasses. If I'm going to become the next symbol of peace, the next #1 hero. I need to know the dark and gritty of what I'm about to face. All Might put his coffee on the table and took a deep breath. I'm not going to lie to you, young Melissa. The things I'm about to tell you could potentially change how you see society as a whole. Everything you used to know will change irrevocably. Nothing will be the same after this conversation, and if you think you were having second thoughts about becoming my successor before, the stuff I'll reveal to you might make you think I made a mistake, that I should have picked someone else, that you weren't cut out for this role. All Might crossed his fingers and flashed a serious stare. With all this in mind, do you still want to know? Melissa clutched her chest, feeling a heavy sensation within it. Something told her it was her body telling her to say no and continue living in ignorance. But if she knew something, is that whatever All Might would tell her wouldn't make it go away. In fact, it might make it worse. But she had no choice. No, it wasn't just that she had no choice, but she had a job to do now, become the next symbol of peace and follow on All Might's footsteps. And how was she supposed to do that if she was blissfully ignorant of society as a whole? Yes, Uncle Might, I want to know. All Might's eyes widened as Melissa added, with a tone of determination. I need to know. Could Melissa Shield please head to the Class 1A classroom to begin the inspection? The ninth inheritor shot up from her seat and turned to the speaker on the wall, eyeing it with the same disdain a girl would against a guy who just opened a door while she was changing. All Might wasn't nearly as bothered by the interruption, however. In fact, he seemed rather relieved about it. Guess we'll have to leave this conversation for another time, young Melissa, the skeletal man remarked with a little smile. Now go before the police start getting suspicious. But, the truth about society, about the quirk that can take other quirks. Learning about those won't help you in the slightest if you end up being suspected as a traitor, All Might matter-of-factly answered. Now, please, go to the inspection. Melissa really didn't want to go, but considering what would happen if she stayed behind, she didn't have much choice in the matter. That, and All Might didn't seem to be in a rush to tell her about this awful truth, and pushing him while he was skeletal just seemed mean. Alright, Uncle Might, I'll go. But I hope you're ready to spill every bean about it when this is over. The man nodded and sipped his coffee as Melissa left the office. Dang it, now she really wanted answers. Back with Midoriya, the boy sat on his desk at the Class 1B classroom, right amongst his troubled classmates. Their class was going to get inspected as soon as the inspection on Class 1A was over, but this did nothing to calm their nerves as the potential of there being a traitor among them was still present. And in Midoriya's case, it was driving him up a wall. Midoriya. The boy lifted his head and turned to see Kendo standing nearby, looking at him with a concerned expression. How are you holding up? I want to say fine, but I'd be lying right through my teeth, Midoriya sighed, resting his chin on the desk. Not only have I found out something terrible happened to Hatsume, but now there's the idea that one of us could be a traitor. Kendo brushed Midoriya's back and flashed a reassuring smile. Everybody here is innocent until proven otherwise, Midoriya. And if there really is a traitor among us, the police will deal with them. Midoriya gained a little smile on his face. He didn't know how she did it, but Kendo still had a way to cheer him up even in a troubled time like this. Now, you said something happened with Hatsume, Kendo's smile faltered. Would it help you if you talked about it with someone? Midoriya lifted his head once more and thought about it. Kendo was one of the most trustworthy people in Class 1B, after all she had to keep Monoma in check constantly. And besides, the faster Midoriya talked with somebody about what happened, the better. Do you promise not to tell anybody? Kendo silently nodded. Alright, here's the gist of it. I lost my quirk, Hatsum sadly confessed to Mineta and Power Loader, whose eyes widened. For real, this time. Wait a minute, you mean you still had your quirk when you got the robotic eyes? Mineta asked, raising an eyebrow. I thought you had lost it as soon as your eyes were damaged. I thought that too, but apparently, as long as my quirk factor was left unharmed, I still had it with me, Hatsum replied, scratching her head. I just couldn't access it because I didn't have my eyes anymore, for obvious reasons. And now you're telling us you somehow lost your quirk today? Power Loader asked. I'm sorry, Hatsum, but that's not something I can just swallow. Especially considering you said your quirk factor was fine, how can you have lost your quirk if the factor was left intact? Maybe, it was the result of a quirk, Mineta asked. That's just as hard to believe, Mineta, Power Loader expressed. I know quirks are incredibly varied, but there's no way there could be a quirk that can steal other quirks. Hatsum had no comment. Well, we're gonna go through an inspection in a while, so make yourselves presentable, Power Loader remarked. I'll see if I can talk with Nezu about what's going on. The armored hero stood up and left the workshop, leaving the nervous Mineta and Hatsum alone. What a way to start the day, huh? Mineta asked with a nervous, clearly forced chuckle. Instead of staying at home or watching the sports festival, we're gonna be inspected to see if either of us is a traitor. I still don't get why they wouldn't postpone the sports festival, Hatsum rubbed her forehead. I mean, I get it's a popular event and they need something to distract the masses actually, I think I just answered my own question. Hatsum took a long, tired breath and lowered her head, and shortly after, Mineta brushed her head. Everything's gonna be okay. Hatsum lifted her head and smiled hopefully. I hope so, Mineta. I hope so. Just then, the door to the workshop opened, and from it entered a member of Class 1B, the silver-haired Reiko Yanagi. She had her eyes closed, which caught Hatsum's attention. Excuse me, she spoke. Would the owner of the workshop just so happen to still be present at this moment? Quote. What? Was all the gadgeteer could ask in response. I think she's asking if Power Loader's here, Mineta explained. And the answer's no, he just left to go see Principal Nezu. Yanagi smirked. That's perfect. Okay, now she was really worrying the duo. I have been given a surprise assignment, one that comes with a permanent benefit for me, the silver-haired teen explained as she walked closer to the pair. And I'm going to need your help to do this, Hatsum. And she was officially creeped out. How do you know my name? You blow up the workshop every time you work there, whether you're working on a new gadget, or upgrading an old one, Yanagi curtsied. It would be foolish of me to remain ignorant of the gadget queen known by the name of Mei Hatsum. Hatsum, though flattered by the obvious ego bait, she didn't lower her guard just yet. Mineta, I'll take care of this. Though shocked at this statement, Mineta nonetheless got the hint and nodded before he left. This left Hatsum alone with Yanagi, whose smile slowly gained a hint or malice as she narrowed her eyes. All right, spill the beans. Before Hatsum could add anything else, a white aura enveloped her as she levitated by Yanagi's will. The girl herself lifted her arm as she explained. Let me be blunt, Hatsum. The one who gave me the assignment has a beef with you, and they're giving me the chance to evolve, as they said, with only one condition. You have to die, and I must bring proof that I killed you. They want me dead, Hatsum snapped, trying to break free from her hold. Who gave you this assignment? Yanagi smirked as she opened her eyes, revealing her pupils resembled bullseyes. Hatsum's own eyes widened, recognizing those pupils as her own. Wouldn't you like to know? Melissa stood in a long line alongside the rest of her classmates. Detective Scouchy, as well as Inko and some nondescript police officers, stood in front of them, asking the names and quirks to detect any lies. Presumably, that was only the first part of what they were going to do to identify the traitor. Melissa was right in the middle, with Shimura and Kaminari by her sides. Off at the very last member, there stood a guy with purple messy hair and eyes that made him look like he hadn't had a good sleep since, ever. When I was told my first day at Class 1A would be memorable, I don't think they meant this, he audibly complained. Melissa frowned in sympathy, but quickly turned around when Shimura tugged her sleeve. Are we gonna be alright, Melissa? Don't worry, Tenko, we're all gonna be fine, Melissa said, patting the boy's back. As soon as this inspection is over and the entire class comes clean, I'm sure they'll let us go. And what if they find a traitor among us? The only traitor in this class was Mina, Tenko. There's no way there's another traitor. Melissa paused for a second, then shook her head. No, there's not another traitor. Shimmer frowned. I'm sorry if I seem pessimistic, but that doesn't calm me down at all. It's okay, Tenko. You two might want to be quiet, Kaminari whispered to the pair. They're about to reach Yaoyorozu. With that said, the pair nodded and kept their mouths shut as Scouchy and Inko reached Yaoyorozu. Name and quirk, the miniature woman requested. Momo Yaoyorozu. Creation. Inko and Scouchy exchanged looks, and turned back to the girl with serious expressions, startling her a bit. Is something wrong? She asked. You don't think I'm lying, do you? My quirk lets me identify any and all possible lies, no matter how convincing. If you had lied to us, I would know, Scouchy answered. However, while you're telling us the truth, we need to ask you a couple questions before we move on. Yaoyorozu frowned. Okay, what does your quirk do, exactly? Inko asked. It lets me create non-living objects from my body using my lipids, Yaoyorozu answered, folding her arms. Depending on the object, however, I may need to use extra lipids to seal or cover it, lest I damage my internal organs. Melissa and Shimmer winced at the statement. They were a bit curious, but they weren't in the mood to figure out how did Yaoyorozu come to that conclusion. Can you create weapons? The small detective asked next. I can, but again, depending on the weapon, I may need to use extra lipids to cover it, or even just to create its ammunition. Could you give us a demonstration with, let's say, a bullet? Yaoyorozu blushed as she lifted her shirt and created a small silver bullet, which she showed to the detectives before Scouchy grabbed it. Is a bullet something you just recently started creating? Yaoyorozu shook her head. It was one of the first things I learned how to create out of memory, alongside a gun. Melissa and Shimura's eyes widened. Bullets and guns were the first thing Yaoyorozu learned to create. And she wasn't even denying it. Sure, it wouldn't have helped, but she could at least show some hesitation about it. With how she was carrying herself, it was almost as if she had no issue with it at all. Even if she wasn't the traitor, and this was just a disturbing coincidence, the duo and Class 1A as a whole were now curious about Yaoyorozu's family situation. Can you show us? Yaoyorozu repeated her previous motion, only this time she created a pistol. Does this answer your question? Inko grabbed the gun, inserted the bullet, then aimed it at a ball she took out and threw through the window. The resulting bang, asterisk and hit of the object made it far too clear the object was the real deal. This is a real gun, no doubt about it, Inko turned back to Yaoyorozu. You didn't even think of making a toy gun. I mean, didn't you say that was the first thing you were taught how to create? Yaoyorozu raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? I clearly said the first thing I learned how to create were bullets and guns. I thought you meant toy ones. Yaoyorozu shook her head. Real ones. Melissa and Shimura exchanged looks of disbelief. Was Yaoyorozu trying to make herself look like the traitor? Even if she had been conditioned to think this was normal, there's no way she'd be this innocent and naive about it. Right, okay, Yaoyorozu, that's all, Inko said, saving the gun in her pocket. We're gonna need interrogate you after this inspection is over, so please stay around for a while afterwards, okay? Yaoyorozu twiddled her fingers. Am I in trouble? No, sweetie. We just want to clarify a couple things, Inko replied in a motherly tone. Speaking of trouble, something that just occurred to her put her in a bit of a bind. Detective Scouchy was asking the students for both their name and their quirk names. Now, this wouldn't be so bad, if One for All wasn't supposed to be a big secret. Sure, Inko knew about it, but even if her detective partner was in the know as well, the same couldn't be said for the cops, or the rest of Class 1A. Even so, Scouchy made it clear lying wouldn't get her anywhere, so she had to think of something, and quick. Name and quirk. Melissa flinched, snapping back to reality to see Inko and Detective Scouchy staring at her. Inko did so with a reassuring glance, while the detective's expression was far too neutral to pinpoint. Nevertheless, Melissa got an idea, and regained her composure before saying. Melissa Shield. Superwoman. Crap. She meant to say superpower. She's telling the truth, Detective Scouchy stated. And don't worry if you don't like the name, since you were such a late bloomer, or so I've been told, it's okay if the name you picked for your quirk isn't well thought out. Melissa raised an eyebrow. Somebody told him that she was a late bloomer. Was he talking about All Might? Or did Inko give her a break and made up a cover story for her quirk? Regardless, she was grateful as the duo went to Shimura. Name and quirk. TT Tenko Shimura. D. Decay. Ah, so you're the Tenko Shimura that All Might saved one day. Scouchy scratched his chin. You're worried about the potential of another traitor being in your ranks, aren't you? Why yes. Well, don't worry son, we'll find that traitor and give them a piece of our mind. With a pat on the back, Detective Scouchy and Inko continued. I see, so that's what happened. Kendo frowned. Sounds rough. You have my condolences. In that moment, Midoriya and Kendo turned back to see Shiozaki behind them, clasping her hands in prayer with a little smile. She also seemed rather refreshed, or something. She definitely didn't seem to be as nervous as they'd expect her to be after what happened at the sports festival. Oh. Hi Shiozaki, I didn't know you were there, Midoriya remarked. How are you feeling? I'm not going to lie, once I woke up at the hospital, I felt terrible for what I had done, even if the person I attacked had it coming. Shiozaki raised her head and smiled wider. But then, I met a pair of wonderful people who agreed to help me control the berserker inside of me, and after an evening with them, I have hope that I'll be able to control myself when my anger surfaces again. Midoriya wasn't sure if hearing someone like Shiozaki claim there was a berserker inside of her was funny or disturbing. It was most certainly curious, though. How much did you hear about Midoriya's story? Kendo asked, returning the guy to reality. All of it, Shiozaki confessed. And I have to say, while I don't know Hatsune personally, I feel sorry for her. To think there would be someone so terrible as to take away her quirk without her consent. Wait, you think somebody took it? Midoriya shrugged. I thought she lost her quirk because she was convinced she was functionally quirkless. Don't be ridiculous, Midoriya, Monoma remarked, approaching the exasperated trio. It's one thing to think yourself as functionally quirkless, it's another for the quirk to just up and vanish like that. Do you even know what we're talking about, Monoma? Kendo asked sternly. The fact that Midoriya's girlfriend suddenly lost her quirk, despite her quirk factor being left undamaged, Monoma matter-of-factly explained, making Midoriya blush. You weren't exactly whispering, you know. Well, what do you want? Shiozaki raised an eyebrow. Do you have any idea of how this could have happened? I'm with your opinion in that someone must have taken away her quirk away somehow. Monoma scratched his chin in thought. What I can't wrap my head around is the fact they somehow knew where she lived, and when was the right time to strike. She actually stayed over at my house over the night, Midoriya hesitantly confessed. I think we had a party or something to celebrate the fact she won the sports festival. That only implies whoever did it knew where you lived, Midoriya, Kendo pointed out, lowering her eyelids. And if they knew where you lived? Okay, students, time to begin your inspection, Detective Scouchy said as he entered the room. Please form a single line outside. We'll talk about this later. The teenagers left the classroom and made a line. Midoriya and Kendo were first. Name and quirk. Izuku Midoriya. Swan dive. He's telling the truth. The detective wasted no time and headed for the next student. Name and quirk. Itsuka Kendo. Big fist. She's also telling the truth. Once again the detectives went to the next students, and so on and so forth. As they did this, Midoriya took a deep breath and clutched his chest. See, Midoriya, Kendo whispered to the nervous Swan Knight. There's nothing to worry about. Maybe. Midoriya looked at the rest of his classmates with concerned eyes. But I feel something's gonna go wrong any minute now. Name and quirk. Abara Shiozaki. Vines. Inko and Detective Scouchy exchanged looks, and this was enough to get Midoriya's attention as well, who eyed the scene along with Kendo, both having concerned looks on their faces. What? While you're being honest about your name, you're lying about your quirk's name, Scouchy stated, tipping his hat. How about you give us its real name? Shiozaki lowered her head and thought about it for a moment before she bitterly answered, Dryad. That's true, Scouchy nodded. Sorry if your quirk's true name upsets you, but we needed you to be completely honest. I understand, Shiozaki answered, clenching her fists. You're only trying to help us avoid another Mina from hurting us all. Their conversation done, the detectives went to the next student, leaving a fuming Shiozaki behind. Luckily, she calmed down soon after, because something about Yui caught her attention. She was making some weird gesture with her hand, as if she was calling for something to come towards her. And the more she did those gestures, the more a small object headed straight for her hand. A pen, one with a sharpened end. Seeing this, Shiozaki planted her hair on the ground, and spread it until it landed behind Yui, hidden underneath the ground so the detectives wouldn't notice. And seeing that, Kendo and Midoriya kept a close eye on Shiozaki, while also turning to see Monoma's turn next. Name and quirk. Nito Monoma. Copy. Inko raised an eyebrow. So, going by your quirk's name alone, it allows you to copy quirks. Well, yes, as long as I have physical contact with someone, I can copy their quirk, Monoma explained, with Yui nearby rolling her eyes. This only applies to transformation and emitters, though. I can't copy mutant quirks, and the copy only lasts for 5 minutes. Suspicious, Yui uttered. While I have to agree that it's a bit suspicious, he's telling the truth. Detective Scouchy turned to the horse-like girl right next to Monoma. So, let's go with the girl next to you. Name and quirk. Pony Tsunotari. Horn Cannon. She's telling the truth, the detective answered, slightly startled by the girl's exuberant energy. Then, he leaned closer to her ear and whispered, "Keep it down a little, will you? Just keep an eye on the other students like you were instructed to do." Whispering in a stern tone, Pony replied, "You do your job, and I'll do mine, all right." Monoma frowned at the exchange, and after the duo separate, the detectives finally reached Yui, whose expression remained neutral as the detective said. Name and quirk. Yui Kodai. Size. The detective squinted his eyes as he took a closer look at the raven-haired girl, which only made Midoriya, Kendo, and especially Shiozaki nervous as to what would happen next. After a few seconds of squinting, the detective came to a conclusion. While you're being honest about your name and your quirk, I feel like you're hiding something from us. Scouchy leaned back and folded his arms. Tell me, would you happen to have another quirk in your disposal? Kinda like with Monoma's alleged copy quirk. Alleged? Monoma asked, seemingly offended. Yui shook her head. Detective, with all due respect, how dumb are you? Nobody is capable of having more than one quirk, unless your quirk allows you to store multiple ones, like Monoma's alleged copy quirk. If you're really going to suggest I have more than one quirk within me, at least come up with some proof first. Yui never talks this much, nor this disrespectfully, Kendo remarked, her eyes widening at the statement. Something feels wrong. Midoriya and Shiozaki exchanged a look and nod, the latter getting ready to use her vines as soon as Yui made a wrong move. Even still, you're hiding something, and if you're not going to tell us what it is, I'm gonna need you to come with me for a moment. Yui broke free from the detective's grasp as soon as he grabbed her arm. And I'm gonna need you to bugger off. Yui revealed the sharpened pen behind her and raised it straight for Scouchy's gut, only for some vines to grab her arm and keep it in place. She turned back to the earlier students at the line, and saw Shiozaki sternly glaring at her as she disconnected her hair from the floor, keeping the vines in place. Sadly, this also made them weak enough for Yui to rip them apart and escape, throwing the pen to the ground and activating her quirk to turn it big enough to block off the hallway as she ran away. This, however, meant nothing when Kendo ran past the detectives, made her fist giant, and punched the pen in half with it. Come on, don't just stand there. Kendo yelled at the students and detectives. We need to catch Yui before she escapes. You heard the class president. Monoma exclaimed, running to Kendo's side. We need to get a move on. Midoriya nodded and he, along with the rest of Class 1B and the detectives, chased after the fleeing Yui as Kendo snapped at the top of her lungs. You're not getting away, Kodai. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.